From the moment you start Halo Reach's campaign, you already know how it's going to end. We see landscape shots of the burnt and destroyed planet. We already know that this battle, whatever it is going to be lost. The camera pans down and we see our helmet. The helmet of the Spartan we customized for multiplayer. Not only will this battle be lost, but we will die with it. The title drops as the music builds, and I don't know about you, but I get chills every time I watch this. Then we see our helmet again, but this time, it's not cracked and destroyed, but clean and whole. It's a great example of juxtaposition, as we can easily tell that we're now at an earlier time than the last cutscene. Text in the corner tells us that this is Planet Reach, and the year is 2552. Our character is dropped off, and we're introduced to our main squad of Spartans. We are Noble 6, the newest member of Noble Team, an elite squad of Spartans. In this simple cutscene, we learn several important details. First, Noble 6 has a rather mysterious past. When Emil, Noble 4, asks Kat, Noble 2, if she's read 6's file, she says,
"Only the parts that weren't covered in black ink."
We also learn from Colonel Holland, who's basically our version of command, that our assignment is to investigate a destroyed communications outpost and find a squad of missing soldiers. They assume it's the work of local rebels, and Holland emphasizes that they can't let the rebels cause this much trouble because, as he says,
"Reach is too damn important."
This line is especially important because it tells us why we should care. And with that, we head off to our first mission. But before we do so, Carter tells us that he's also read our file, and that 6 is on a team now, and his lone wolf instincts stay behind. This establishes Noble 6 as not only a character with a mysterious past, but also that he tends to be a loner. As we investigate the communications outpost, we begin to notice that something seems off. The first sign is Emil pointing out that there might be plasma damage, and George, Noble 5, responds with,
"Can't be. Not on Reach."
If you've played other Halo games, you know what George is talking about, but it still ensues a sense of unease. What could possibly cause a Spartan to get worried? Spartans are superhuman soldiers, and George is the biggest one of the group. What could possibly spook him? Next, we come across a group of farmers who are hiding from something. We don't know what. One of them says something in the fields killed his son. Shortly after, we find 2 of the missing soldiers killed in action. Their bodies are almost propped up, like someone wanted us to see this. It continues to build the sense of unease that something isn't what it seems. This is further shown when strange sounds are heard from the roof and the motion tracker gets set off. Who or what could have done this? And then, finally, it all comes to a head. We see aliens begin to attack us. It's the Covenant, an advanced alliance of alien races hell-bent on destroying humanity. They're here on Reach. We continue through the mission towards the communications outpost, fighting waves of Covenant along the way. When we finally reach the base, we find a dead body, as well as a live girl. We're then ambushed by Covenant elites, and high-ranking ones at that. This is a good time to mention that a lot of the cutscenes in Halo Reach are shown in first person. This does an excellent job of immersing us, both in the story and in the character of Noble 6. We really feel like Noble 6 is us. After all, 6 can look however you want them to, everything from their armor to their gender. After we clear out the remaining Covenant, we get an excellent scene for characterization. First, we see Kat being the one to work on fixing the destroyed communications relay. This establishes her as the smart and tech support character. This was also shown earlier through her investigation of the beacon and her frequent association with technology. Then Carter asks George to find out what the girl knows. We see George, this large figure of a man, lean down and change his entire demeanor. Throughout the level, George was a hulking, unstoppable figure, but now he's showing that he has a big heart despite his job. The girl says that the dead body we found was her father. George says he's sorry for her loss, but she retaliates with,
"Why would you be?"
You can see this comment hurts George, because even though it isn't mentioned in this game, Spartans were raised from childhood to be soldiers. Some were stolen from their homes, while others were orphans. Spartans are unable to understand what it's like to truly have parents. You can see the hurt on George's face as the girl reminds him of this fact. This is further shown by Emil commenting on it, saying to us,
"Big man forgets what he is sometimes."
To which George responds with,
"She just lost her father."
in a pissed off manner, as he's still hurt by the girls, and now Emil's comment. This also characterizes Emil very well, as he's established as the one to make snide comments, and it's shown throughout the level that he's the type to love the fight and the killing. In fact, he almost sounds excited when they find the Covenant.
Cheer up, big man. This whole valley just turned into a free fire zone.
George and Emil continue to exchange comments before Carter steps in and tells the both of them to lock it down. Carter is shown to be straight and serious, and both George and Emil respect his order, for the most part. We see George and Emil exchange looks. Seems to be a hint at a bit of past beef between them. The mission ends with Carter telling Colonel Holland that the Covenant are on Reach. Holland is shocked by the news and has to ask Carter to repeat himself, but it's true. The cutscene fades to black as we hear Holland say,
May God help us all.
The next level involves Noble Team helping defend a top-secret naval intelligence facility known as Sword Base from a large Covenant ship. We see the Covenant ship in the distance, and it's a constant threat throughout the level. This helps further the fact that the Covenant is a rather intimidating force, making you feel small in comparison, something I've always thought this game does extremely well. You fight your way through the base, definitely not getting killed by an alien tank in the process, before helping take out some large Covenant weapons. You then fight through some more Covenant before helping the orbital weapons lock on to the large Covenant ship and they shoot it out of the sky. Once we've completed our mission, Carter tells us that someone named Dr. Halsey wants to speak with Noble Team. George is especially interested in this because Dr. Halsey was the creator and head of the first generation of Spartans, of which George was a member. Dr. Halsey wants to know the details of the squad of Covenant elites we encountered in the previous level. The scene serves to characterize Dr. Halsey as an intimidating presence, especially since she talks down to Carter, even though he's a Spartan commander and she's a civilian. At one point she says,
Commander, are you a puppet or a Spartan?
I love Emil and June's reaction to this comment. Despite the fact that Dr. Halsey is significantly shorter than every Spartan in the room, you can tell that everyone is put on edge by her presence. Carter's voice acting and animation expertly shows that he's trying his best to keep his calm composure. We learned from Dr. Halsey that the team of elites were at the outposts because there was something important to their religion there, probably from the naval intelligence research going on there. Halsey mentions that the naval intelligence team could have found something of great importance. The next mission involves you and June, Noble 3, on a nighttime spec ops assignment. The music and atmosphere of this level is amazing, although the music in every level is amazing. I'm going to be skipping over a lot of this level and throughout this analysis since I'm a bit pressed for time. But by the end of this level, you find out that the Covenant is preparing for a full-scale planetary invasion, and stopping them isn't going to be an easy task. The fourth mission begins with the human retaliation as the fight for Reach becomes full-scale. Kat crashes the car because women can't drive, and we get to hear a Wilhelm scream, because why not? Our main goal is to destroy the shield around a Covenant communications tower. George picks us up, and then we crash for the second time that day. We then make our way up to the tip of the spear. Get it? Because it's like the name of the level. And we take down the shield. Then, a large human ship flies in and obliterates the spire with highly destructive Mac rounds. As Carter puts it,
One way to get their attention.
however, the human ship is shot down from out of nowhere, and the camera pans up to show an enormous Covenant supercarrier has just arrived. The human ship now looks tiny in comparison to this massive alien vessel. The Covenant aren't here to mess around, and they are a truly terrifying presence. The next mission is Long Night of Solace, one of the best missions in the game, and where the tone reaches a turning point. We open with Noble Team holding up in a cave as a Covenant scarab walks outside. Kat and Carter are deep in a discussion, and George and June comment on the conversation by saying,
Who's your money on this time?
Her.
You always pick her.
She's always had him dialed in.
This implies that whenever the team has reached a roadblock, Kat and Carter always start going at each other. We then focus on the two of them as Kat suggests an idea for how to get rid of the giant Covenant supercarrier since there aren't any nuclear bombs available. Kat suggests using the spaceship's slipspace drive to teleport the ship to oblivion. Our job is to escort the bomb to the supercarrier. We're dropped off outside the launch site and we fight our way inside, where Six and George take off to orbit. We see some questionable camera angles before we fight more Covenant, but now we're in a spaceship, which makes for a fun change in gameplay. We land on a smaller Covenant ship and make our way inside. While fighting our way to the bridge, we witness a human ship get destroyed by the Covenant, and all we can do is stand and watch as the ship crumbles to pieces. When we reach the bridge, we set the Covenant ship on a path to the supercarrier, and then we return to George, who has found out a troubling fact. The bomb timer is fried, so it has to be initiated manually. George tells us that we're needed back on Reach. He takes off his dog tags and gives them to us. George's last words to us are,
Tell him to make it count.
Then he throws us off the ship. As we fall towards the planet, we watch as our bomb succeeds and half the supercarrier is utterly destroyed. And then, all of a sudden, tons more Covenant supercarriers arrive out of slipspace. We've already seen how threatening just one supercarrier can be, but now there are hundreds of them. This is what I meant about the turning point of the game. After this level, the battle for Reach turns from bad to worse. We land back on Reach, and watch as pieces of the destroyed supercarrier fall to the planet. This shot is one of my absolute favorites in the game. Landscape shots like this are a recurring theme throughout the game because Halo Reach is ultimately about the setting. You're fighting for Reach. We don't need a constant verbal reminder of that. We can see it in every beautiful shot of this incredible planet. We make our way to the city of New Alexandria and witness the carnage that the Covenant has wrought firsthand. There's hardly any dialogue as we feel every emotion purely through the music and the visuals. Noble Six holds on to George's dog tags as he makes his way through the city, rescuing and helping civilians whenever he can. We frequently see grisly scenes of dead civilians, further showing how brutal the Covenant truly is. Once the last civilian transport is away, we finally get back in contact with the rest of Noble Team, and we start the next mission. This cutscene is especially impactful as it's just Noble Six, all by himself, as he stares out at the burning city around him as beautifully sad music plays in the background. We finally meet up with Carter again, and we have this exchange.
Good to have you back. Sorry I came alone. Make him proud.
Notice how Carter doesn't blame Six for the death of George or give him some sappy apology. He just tells us to make George proud, to make sure he didn't die in vain. The rest of the level is spent flying from building to building to take out Covenant comm jammers. We also witness the Covenant glassing different parts of the city by blasting them with superheated plasma. Eventually, we return to a naval intelligence building to meet up with the rest of Noble Team. When Noble Six pulls out George's dog tags, Emil says,
Keep him. I gave him to you. I'll honor him my own way.
June mentions that George always said he'd never leave Reach, and he has a point. George's death is ironic in that way. The man who loved and cared for Reach and said he'd never leave it didn't even die on it. Then Kat says one of my favorite lines in the game.
I know we're losing. I want to know if we've lost.
She wants to know if it's even worth it to keep fighting. Is it even possible to win this fight? Unfortunately, we already know the answer, even if the characters don't. Suddenly, the Covenant begin glassing the city right nearby us, and we're forced to flee. We make our way down to a fallout shelter, and Carter tells us that we're being reassigned to Sword Base, the same one we fought for earlier, only now it's been taken over by the Covenant. When we reach the bunker, the team has to run across an area of exposed ground, and then the unthinkable happens.
Does he get off calling a demolition a priority one?
She didn't even get to finish her sentence. This shows one of the core themes of Halo Reach. Not every soldier dies in a glorious death. When we leave the bunker, we see the once beautiful city of New Alexandria burned to a crisp to the point where it's practically unrecognizable. The music is especially strong here as you witness the remaining members of Noble Team look out on the destruction the Covenant have caused, both on the landscape and the team itself. In the next mission, we return to Sword Base, but right away you can see the difference. The landscape is burned and dead, and the sky is red with dust and plasma. You can also hear the change in Carter's voice over the radio. Colin has to call his name twice before he responds, and his voice sounds distant and cold. You infiltrate Sword Base for the second time in the game, but now it's significantly harder. Covenant tanks and turrets are everywhere, and this is honestly the hardest part in the game in my opinion. You and the rest of Noble Team make your way through the destroyed base until you reach a dead end. I really like these lines here.
Well, it's pointing us a click and a half east and 2,000 feet underground.
I didn't bring my shovel.
I don't really have anything to analyze with that. I just think it's funny. Suddenly a wall opens up and we find a top secret section of the already top secret facility. We meet up with Dr. Halsey. We now have a new mission. Get Dr. Halsey's data and her artificial intelligence off planet by bringing them to the ship Pillar of Autumn. The AI in question is none other than Cortana, one of the most important characters in the main Halo trilogy that this game precedes. Halsey tells us that Cortana has chosen us, Noble Six, as her carrier, and so our final mission begins. June is tasked with escorting Dr. Halsey off planet. Carter tells him to make sure no sensitive information falls into enemy hands, and June says,
I'll do what's necessary, sir.
Meaning that if it comes down to it, he'll kill Halsey to make sure the Covenant don't find out what she knows. When the next level begins, you see that Carter has been severely wounded and the ship is failing. He tells us and Emil to jump off and get the AI to the Pillar of Autumn. The three of them know what this means. Emil tells Carter,
It's been an honor, sir.
and Carter tells us,
That AI chose you. She made the right choice.
Noble Six and Emil make their way towards the shipbreaking yard, but not before we have to say goodbye to another member of Noble Team. A Covenant Scarab blocks our path, and Carter leaves us with a final message
You're on your own, Noble. Carter out.
before he drives his ship into the Scarab. Neither Emil nor Noble Six cry out when Carter dies. They both know that this is war, and they have a job to complete. Plus, If the characters made a big deal out of Carter's death, it would take away from the core theme of the game. Not everyone goes out in a blaze of glory. Eventually, you reach the shipbreaking yard and meet up with Captain Keyes of the Pillar of Autumn. In case you didn't know, Reach is a prequel to the first Halo game, in which the Pillar of Autumn, Captain Keyes, and Cortana play significant roles. We're about to join Keyes when a Covenant ship swoops in and attacks Emil, who's manning the anti-air gun. We look up and see the man with a love for knives get stabbed through the chest by a Covenant energy sword. Before he dies, he yells out,
I'm ready! How about you?
as he takes his killer down with him. This means that the Pillar of Autumn won't have any cover when they take off, so Noble Six makes the choice to stay behind and man the gun. We spend the rest of the level shooting down any Covenant ships that dare to attack the Pillar of Autumn, as it takes off with both Cortana and the Master Chief on board. We then go to a cutscene that is straight out of the first game, as the Pillar of Autumn comes across Halo, and we see that all of our efforts haven't been for nothing. Then we begin the final mission. Our only objective is survive. Unfortunately, you cannot complete that objective. You have to fight endless waves of enemies as pieces of your armor begin to malfunction and turn off until eventually you die. Noble Six could have found a way off the planet, but he chose to die for a doomed world. He chose to die on the planet that so many of his fellow Spartans had died for, including the team he'd only been a part of for a month. And with that, Noble Six, the lone wolf, dies alone, as you, the player, are forced to watch your character die from the perspective of your helmet. You never even see Six's face, because they're you. You died for Reach. And so, we've come full circle. Your cracked helmet lays in the destroyed ground of the planet Reach. Not every soldier dies in a glorious manner. Not every soldier died for a victory. Death isn't always beautiful, and not every story has a happy ending. The story of Reach and Noble Team is ultimately a tragedy, and it reflects some of the most famous battles in history, such as the Battle of Thermopylae and the Alamo, all of which involve people fighting till their last breath to defend their home from a never-ending powerful force that will ultimately overthrow them. However, Reach doesn't end in a completely depressive note. The cutscene fades into the future. We see grass beginning to grow again. We hear the voice of Dr. Halsey as she gives us one of the best ending speeches in video game history.
It didn't take long for Reach to fall. Our enemy was ruthless, efficient, but they weren't nearly fast enough. For you had already passed the torch, and because of you, we found Halo, unlocked its secrets, shattered our enemy's resolve. Our victory, your victory, was so close, I wish you could have lived to see it. But you belong to Reach. Your body, your armor, all burned and turned to glass. Everything. Except your courage. That you gave to us. And with it, we can rebuild.
And that, my friends, is Halo Reach. One of the best games of all time, in my opinion. I could analyze every second of this game if I wanted to, but I've had to skip over a lot for the sake of time. If you haven't played this game already, I highly suggest you do so. And then go play the other Halo games, as they're all just as awesome, except for the most recent ones, but we don't talk about those. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and remind you to remember Reach.